You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
So Liverpool are obviously playing really, really well at the moment in terms of Europe's top 5 leagues. They are second only to Bayern Munich in expected goal difference per 90. It's not a great surprise that Bayern Munich are quite far ahead of that because the level of opposition over there in Germany is a little bit weaker. So Liverpool are really pushing here. They've scored 29 goals so far, which is the most they've scored since the late 70s in the first 10 games of a season. They also are only exceeding their expected goals total, if you go by the FBref StatsBomb page, of 26.3 by just under 3 goals. So it's not an enormous overperformance. They're not top of the table yet, but there are a huge number of signs that are very, very encouraging for Liverpool. Obviously, one of the things that they're up against is that Manchester City are a really good side and Chelsea defensively at the moment are really bossing it. But there's definitely stuff that Liverpool fans can look at and take heart from. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that are particularly interesting because one of the problems that Liverpool has suffered from this season is injuries to key players in midfield. So if we have a look here, obviously Thiago is absent, Fabinho is absent. Let's get rid of them again. Keita is probably going to be absent. So this is the lineup that has taken to the pitch against United and Brighton. And what you can see here is that Jordan Henderson is filling in this kind of 6 role. Jones and Keita are fairly similar players. They're both kind of get up and down a little bit players. And what's happened is that Klopp has adapted, partly just generally, but partly to kind of mitigate some of these midfield issues. And what you see from Liverpool now is a team that is incredibly proficient in its rotations. So how do they build up in a way that shows this? Well, what you'll get is obviously the fullbacks will push up a little bit here, and then maybe Henderson drops back here or possibly across to here. But you do have Van Dijk's long passing, which is a kind of get out of jail free card, irrespective of whether somebody joins in to help the build up. But Liverpool's other midfielders are also adept at doing this. So if Alexander-Arnold's pushing up here, it might be Keita that drops in here. If Henderson wants to stay a little bit higher, it might be Jones that drops in there. It could be Robertson, and then Jones pushes over across. What you do get is this narrow front 3 initially, with Firmino dropping off. But Liverpool's shape will see 3 people involved in build-up, 4 people in the middle here with staggering between the lines, the width making the width coming here from usually a fullback, but also a midfielder maybe pushing over. And then this kind of tight space here. And what Liverpool are able to do is play the ball between themselves, rotate it nicely, making sure that they're moving the ball and pulling the opposition forwards, because a primary means of attack is to unleash these guys. And obviously Salah and Mane, incredibly quick, incredibly direct, incredibly good at getting in behind and maximizing opportunities. Salah especially on a hot streak here. Firmino can drop off here and also link these sorts of passes. This is kind of going right back to the Liverpool that Klopp was forging with that tight, narrow midfield 3, width coming from the fullbacks and so on. So there has been a bit of a recursion to this, but there are also more interesting rotations at play. So for example, what you might see is if Keita's dropping in here, Robertson's providing width on this side, Alexander-Arnold is tucking into central midfield, and it's Firmino who's coming out here. Sometimes it'll be Salah coming out here and Firmino's one of these two that's looking to pull inside. If Robertson is pushing infield a little bit here, it might be Jones. This is why Harvey Elliott was so important, incidentally, before he got injured, and should have mentioned him earlier, because he was able to pull out wide into this area and act kind of almost as an orthodox winger, but doing that from a central midfield position. The key point with this is that Liverpool are rotating a lot. And what that means is that these players are filling in each other's positions. They're doing this, I don't want to say telepathically because that doesn't really work, but it's so rehearsed and so practiced and so effectively done with a core playing squad that have been together for quite some time now, that it allows for Liverpool to create numerical superiorities between the lines with players moving from unexpected positions. There's a really good example of this that happened against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. So Madrid, we know, defend generally a lot of the time with sort of quite a compact 4-4-2. And what Liverpool were able to do, so Van Dijk's sort of here like this. I might get the players wrong because I might be confused, but what they did was they created a series of diagonals like this along the pitch. So what I mean by this is there's a diagonal line here, there's a diagonal line here, there's kind of a diagonal line here, but also here, and that goes through like that. What this does is it staggers Liverpool's players in a way that means there are plenty of passing options for the player on the ball against a compact defence. They're not all pushing up and being in the same sort of line. They're not necessarily either trying to switch the play and get all the way around, although that is what they did against Atletico Madrid because they were able to exploit this narrowness and switch and move there. But what it means is because these players are so comfortable rotating, because they're so comfortable filling in each other's roles, so that might be Alexander-Arnold pushing into midfield, or it might be a midfielder dropping into the back shape to build that back three and build up. Liverpool can do this consistently, irrespective of how the opposition are lining up against them, and can do it fluidly. And what that does is it puts a doubt in the opposition's mind. Are they going to man mark? Are they going to zonally mark when all of this movement is occurring? Do they step out? Do they hold back? It's almost like the simplest thing is to try and defend in this deep block, but then you also leave the wide spaces out, and we know that Liverpool have really good attacking wingbacks. So Klopp has kind of brought this team to a point now where everybody is in sync, everybody's in harmony, they're able to fill in each other's positions, they can rotate, there's great movement between the lines, and that's with the caveat that their best defensive midfielder, Fabinho, is injured, that Thiago, who's arguably their best passer between the lines, is injured, and up front, it's only really Jota who can come in and supplement that front three if one of them gets injured. It's a hugely, hugely impressive testament to Jurgen Klopp's coaching ability that Liverpool have basically, okay, they drew against Brighton, but Brighton are a very good side, but they've basically been able to maintain this momentum while having to adapt in central midfield and while being without some of their key players. And over the course of a season, if they can sustain these sorts of levels of scoring, it's going to be very, very hard to see them at least not emphatically in the title race, and potentially pulling ahead of a more defensive Chelsea side and a Man City side who still have a few stuttering issues, particularly up front. So yes, Liverpool, really good, and it's all down to how Jurgen Klopp is coaching them. So that's been Tifo IRL, thanks very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will be back with more stuff again soon of some description. Thank you.
Tifo merch, coming to find what you're looking for. Tifo merch, put it on your body and drink out of it. From the grasslands of Australia to the peaks and plains of Antarctica and through the rivers of North America comes a shop of merch that is so damn cool that it's really cool. So cool you have to buy all the merchandise. Buy the merchandise. Come in and buy all our merchandise. Merchandise. Looky right here, there's merchandise, but your merchandise. Gotta get your hands on the merchandise. Merchandise. Buy the merch.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.